Welcome to the deep dive. You sent us a really interesting collection of material here, all focused on peer assessment in education.
That's right. And including that big one, a systematic review of peer assessment design elements.
Yeah, the title alone tells you we're going pretty deep today.
It does. And you were looking to really get a handle on the current state of play with peer assessment research and how it's actually used.
Exactly. So the plan is to pull out the most important insights from all this.
Yeah, give you the kind of the quick version so you don't have to read, well, hundreds of academic papers.
And it really is hundreds. This review alone, it covered, what was it, 449 studies?
Uh-huh. 449 studies from 424 articles just between 2011 and 2018. It's a mountain research.
Seriously, so our job here is to help navigate that mountain. We want to tackle those key questions you had.
Like how varied are the ways people are actually doing peer assessment and studying it?
Right. And are there common ways people design these things? Common patterns?
And, bottom line, what are the key things someone needs to know if they're thinking about using it or just want to understand it better?
Okay, sounds good. Let's get into it.
Great. So let's start with the scope, the sort of breadth of the research. The review broke down where most studies are happening, subject-wise. Did anything jump out at you there?
Well, yeah, it seems like arts and humanities are big areas, then natural sciences, math, stats, and education itself.
Mm-hmm.
But what kind of stood out was how little research there seems to be in fields like, say, services or agriculture.
That's a great observation. Why do you think that might be?
Well, I wonder, is peer assessment just maybe less applicable there? Or is it just that researchers haven't focused on those areas as much?
It could be either, couldn't it? Maybe the assessment styles are different, less suited to peer review than like writing an essay.
Or, yeah, just less research attention.
So thinking about why people use peer assessment in these studies, the review says it's mostly formative.
Right, for learning,
Uh,
helping students improve. That makes sense.
It does. That's often the goal, getting feedback, seeing other viewpoints.
But it also mentioned quite a few studies look at it for summative purposes too, for grades.
Yes, exactly.
Right.
And where that summative use pops up more often is interesting.
Where was that again?
Fields like IT, engineering, manufacturing, construction, health and welfare too. Those areas saw more summative peer assessment.
Okay, I can sort of see that. Maybe in more technical fields, the criteria might feel more, I don't know, objective, easier for peers to grade.
Perhaps. But it does raise that fundamental question, doesn't it?
About whether the purpose learning versus grading changes everything.
Yeah. How should that affect the design? How effective is it? Big questions.
Definitely. Okay, what about what students are actually assessing?
Good question. What did the review find was most common there?
No huge surprise here. Written assignments, that was almost half the studies.
Right. Essays, reports, that kind of thing.
Yeah. And the least common was test performance, which also makes sense. Probably harder to give detailed peer feedback on a multiple choice test.
True. Okay, so we know where, why, and what. What about the outcomes researchers focus on? What are they trying to measure?
This I found really interesting. The biggest focus was actually on students' beliefs and perceptions about peer assessment.
Ah, so how students feel about it.
Exactly. That was number one. Then came things like performance and skills, and then the actual content of the feedback students give each other.
Hmm. So maybe less focus on just the accuracy of the grades.
It seems that way. It suggests the field is really interested in the student experience, not just whether peer grades line up perfectly with instructor grades.
And that's fascinating because you hear so much debate about reliability and validity. Are peer scores accurate and consistent?
Right.
But according to this review, while those things are studied, they weren't the main outcome measured in most research. Student perceptions and the feedback itself got more attention.
That feels like a really important nuance. It's about the process and the experience, maybe more than just the final number.
Definitely. The review also touched on factors that might influence how it all works, moderators and mediators.
Okay, like what influences the outcomes?
Yeah. The most commonly studied were things like gender and student ability or skill level.
So do boys and girls assess differently? Does a high-achieving student give better feedback? That kind of thing.
Exactly. Researchers look at that. But what was quite striking was what wasn't studied as much.
Oh, like what?
Well, things we often talk about as being really important, like psychological factors, trust between students, feeling safe, giving honest feedback, perceived fairness.
You'd think those would be huge.
Right. But the review found relatively little research, specifically digging into those as moderators or mediators. It feels like a bit of a gap.
Yeah, a potentially significant one. Those social dynamics must matter a lot. Okay, so that gives us a good overview of the research landscape. Now, this idea of peer assessment diversity,
Ah, yes. So theoretically, there are tons of different ways you could set up a peer assessment activity.
like all the different knobs you could turn.
Precisely. Online or face-to-face, anonymous or not.
Hmm.
Scores, comments, both. How do you match students? There's a whole range. Early work by Topping really laid this out, and others have refined it since.
So in theory, a massive toolbox of options.
But, and this is where it gets really interesting, this review found that the actual variety in the studies they looked at, much more limited.
Okay, so the practice isn't as varied as the theory suggests.
That's the key takeaway. Despite all these frameworks and potential choices, they used a statistical method, latent class analysis,
Okay.
to find the common patterns in how peer assessment was actually designed in these hundreds of studies. And it wasn't all over the place.
So they found like typical ways of doing it, a few main recipes.
Pretty much 5 main prototypical peer assessment designs, they call them. And get this, only about 10 specific design elements were really important in creating those patterns.
Only 10 elements really distinguish these common approaches. Wow.
Yeah, it suggests researchers, and maybe educators too, tend to kind of gravitate towards certain combinations.
Okay, I definitely want to hear about these 5 patterns. What makes them distinct?
Right. So remember, they looked at 27 different design features, but only 10 really separated these 5 classes.
And those 10 were things like?
Online versus face-to-face, async versus sync.
Yeah.
Happening at the same time or not.
Mm-hmm.
Anonymous versus named. How students were matched.
Okay.
Whether feedback went both ways, within groups or between groups. What was assessed individual or group work. Who did the assessing, individuals or groups. The type of feedback, comments, scores, both. Whether revision was involved.
Mm-hmm.
And the main purpose, formative or summative.
Got it. That's a lot to juggle, but those 10 seem key.
Yeah.
So pattern number 1.
Okay, class 1. This one is mostly online and asynchronous. It's typically formative. Anonymous uses random matching.
Okay.
It's bidirectional. Everyone gives and gets feedback within the same group, so intergroup. And it's usually individuals assessing individuals.
And the feedback.
Mostly written comments, and often there's a revision step afterwards. Does that sound familiar, maybe from online courses?
It really does, yeah. Submit a draft, get anonymous peer comments, revise it. Pretty standard. Okay, class 2.
Class 2 is also typically online, asynchronous, anonymous, random matching, bidirectional intergroup, individuals assessing individuals.
Mm.
So similar setup.
But what's different?
The main things are, it's more often summative, so for a grade, and the feedback relies mainly on scoring. And usually there's no revision stage.
Okay. So more about the grade, less about the improvement cycle. That makes sense. Number 3.
Class 3 flips to face-to-face. So synchronous, happening in real time. It's formative, but non-anonymous.
In the classroom, people know who's reviewing whose work.
Exactly. Matching is often self-selection within the group. Intragroup, individuals assessing individuals again. Feedback is usually oral, and written comments and revision is often included.
Yeah, I can picture that, like an in-class workshop session. Okay, class 4.
Class 4 goes back online, asynchronous, usually formative and anonymous with random matching. But here's a twist. It's often intergroup assessment.
Between groups, how does that work?
Typically, individuals are assessing the work produced by groups they're not part of. Feedback is often both scoring and written comments, and revision is common.
Interesting. So individuals looking at group projects from the outside. And number 5.
Class 5 is also online and asynchronous, but it tends to be summative and non-anonymous. Matching is often domain-based, like students in the same major review each other.
Okay.
And the assessment structure can be more complex, bidirectional, potentially both intergroup and intergroup, with individuals and groups assessing both individuals and groups. Feedback is mainly scoring and usually no revision.
Wow, that last one sounds like it has the most moving parts.
It seems to cover some more complex scenarios, yeah.
Yeah.
So those are the 5 main patterns they found recurring in the research literature.
And you mentioned these patterns sometimes showed up more in certain subjects?
They did find some associations. Like arts and humanities studies often use designs similar to Class 1 and Class 3, the ones focusing more on written feedback and revision.
Makes sense.
While Class 2, that online summative scoring model, was seen across a broader range of subjects.
Okay, so if we zoom out from the 5 patterns and look at those 10 key elements again, it sounds like they fall into a couple of main categories.
That's a good way to put it. The researchers basically synthesized them in 2 big themes, 2 sets of core decisions you make when designing peer assessment.
What's the first theme?
The first is all about the implementation choices. So things like, what's the purpose? Formative learning or summative grading. How involved are students just giving feedback or receiving and revising to? What kind of feedback are you asking for? Scores, comments, both? And is there that revision step?
Right, the how-to of running the activity. Makes sense. And the second theme.
The second theme revolves around the assessment groups and peer interaction. This covers how you structure the social side. Like, are students assessing within their own group, intergroup, or outside it, intergroup? What's being assessed, individual or group work? And who's doing the assessing, individuals or groups? How are peers matched up? Is there direct contact? And crucially, is it anonymous or not?
Gotcha. So implementation choices and group interaction choices, those seem to cover the big decisions.
They really do.
Now, what about the design elements that didn't really seem to matter much in separating these 5 patterns?
Yeah, that was also interesting. Things like how closely the peer assessment task aligned with the overall curriculum.
Okay.
Whether students got specific rewards, like extra points,
Yeah.
for doing the peer assessment, and the setting, like formal class versus informal study group, those didn't really differentiate the 5 main patterns.
So maybe those things are just pretty consistent across most studies. Like most are in formal settings and tied to the curriculum anyway.
That's what the researchers suggest, yeah.
Yeah.
That maybe there wasn't enough variation in those aspects within the studies they looked at to make them distinguishing factors.
Any other surprising findings about what wasn't common?
Well, they noted that using both scores and comments together wasn't as dominant as you might expect. You'd think that would be ideal, right? Get a number and an explanation.
Yeah, seems logical.
But it wasn't a defining feature of most patterns. Also, that idea of matching students based on ability pairing stronger and weaker students, for instance.
Right, we mentioned that earlier.
While it sounds good in theory, it wasn't a dominant matching strategy in any of the 5 common patterns they found. Random matching or self-selection seemed more typical in the research.
Ah, that is surprising. You'd think researchers would be keen to test ability matching.
Maybe it's just harder to implement logistically, or maybe the evidence for its benefit isn't strong enough yet. Food for thought.
Definitely. Okay, so pulling this all together, what are the big implications here? For educators, for researchers?
Well, for educators thinking about using peer assessment, these 5 patterns are actually really useful.
How so?
They provide concrete examples of how it's often done and studied. Instead of being paralyzed by, dozens of theoretical options, you can look at these 5 common approaches and see which one fits your goals, your students, your context.
Like a set of templates or starting points.
Exactly. A menu of tested options. And for researchers, these patterns offer a solid base for designing more focused studies.
Like testing variations within a pattern.
Precisely. Or comparing 2 patterns directly. Or exploring why a certain pattern works well in a specific subject. It helps structure future research.
And the review also stressed the need for researchers to be really clear about their designs when they publish, right?
Absolutely crucial. Systematically reporting all those design details, anonymity, matching, feedback type, everything is essential if we want to build a more robust understanding over time. Better reporting means better future reviews and meta-analyses.
So the main takeaway seems to be lots of theoretical ways to design peer assessment, but in practice, especially in research, it often boils down to a few common patterns.
That's the core message. And those patterns are shaped mostly by decisions about implementation and how you structure the groups and interactions.
Which makes you wonder, is that limited diversity okay?
Yeah.
Or are we missing out by not exploring other designs more?
That's the question it leaves us with, isn't it?
Yeah. And that brings us back to you, the listener. Do these patterns sound like the peer assessment you've experienced, maybe as a teacher or a student?
Do they resonate with your own context?
And given that research seems to cluster around these few models, maybe think about what opportunities are there to try something different.
Could a less common design,
Yeah.
maybe one carefully tailored to a very specific situation, actually yield better or different results?
It's definitely something interesting to kick around. Could exploring beyond these common paths lead to new insights or better learning?
A provocative thought to end on. Thinking outside those established boxes might be where the next innovations lie.
Well, this has been incredibly insightful. Thanks for taking this deep dive with us into how peer assessment is actually designed and studied. Cleared up a lot for me.
My pleasure. It's always fascinating to see how research reflects, and sometimes challenges, our practices.